Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got some special guests joining us this morning.
Yes, indeed.
Of course, we have family, friends to the room, Tamika, Mallory, and Mysonne, always here. Good morning.
Yeah, what's going on?
And this morning you brought with us Tamika Palmer.
Tamika Palmer family too, damn it.
No, but they're here all the time.
That's true.
They
Yes.
call all the time.
Yes.
They check on us all the time.
Yes.
They can come here without a key.
Pretty very true.
Kind of. But
We
you
can
got to
sneak in a
get
little
tested and all
Yeah.
kinds of things before you could get
You got a
upstairs.
swab, and then you don't have to have a key.
Well, good morning.
I want to phrase this right because I don't want to say it could be a joyous occasion, right? Because the 4 officers from Breonna Taylor case have been charged. Yeah. Does it feel like justice was served to you, Ms. Palmer?
No, because I definitely feel like there should be more people charged, and good old Daniel Cameron should go down as well. So, but it's a start.
Mm-hmm. For activists like Tamika and Mysonne, does it feel like justice was served? Is it fulfilling?
Well, I mean, justice being served, no. It's accountability, the beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't say justice because, first of all, justice is convictions. People need to know that just because you got an indictment does not mean that these people are going to go to jail. So they need to be in jail. And we need to find ways to ensure that none of the officers involved, which includes more than 4 people, are able to go and get jobs in other jurisdictions and all of that. And I think also part of justice is, as Tamika said, dealing with the Attorney General Daniel Cameron and what he did, because his role in this could have solved, not so much solved, but it could have provided accountability earlier. But instead, he basically he committed a crime in that he lied and said that the jury decided that they could not find a reason to indict the cops for killing Breonna, but he actually never presented them with charges. And you don't have to listen to us. I mean, the jurors came out themselves. There's actual interviews where the jurors are trying to find a way to basically turn the situation around. They came out and they said, we never were presented with any charges because if we were, we would have indicted.
So let's break down what happened for people that don't know, because for the last couple of years, we've seen you guys posting that these officers need to be charged.
Not just posting, being on the front
Being
lines.
on the front line, posting for some people. Like, so what happened? Why were they finally charged after all this time?
Well, I think because of the activism, is because Tamika Palmer was vocal, because we didn't give up, because people constantly said Breonna Taylor's name, because we took petitions to the DOJ and asked that they file federal charges. We sat down and we demanded that they file federal charges. It wasn't just because they weren't going to do this, and Daniel Cameron, like she said, he circumvented the whole process. If they found federal charges, that means that they definitely was in the state.
Absolutely.
And the state didn't do the investigation necessary to find those things because they didn't want to find those things. So what happened was, after we constantly demanded and we like we said, we took petitions to the DOJ, and they sat down and they said, we're going to look this case over, and they did the research, and then they found officers who admitted, one officer who admitted that they had intentionally hid information because the warrant that was issued to go to Miss Taylor's house was never supposed to happen. It was never supposed to. It was illegally done. And after they realized they illegally issued this warrant, they sat down and said, how are we going to figure out how to cover this up? So the whistleblower came forward and pretty much got all of these charges brought.
Kelly Goodlett.
Yeah, and she didn't just come forward. She was getting ready to go to jail. See, the FBI never left Kentucky. And that was a process, too, because as they were going around talking to individuals, there were people who didn't want to talk to them. Black folks is like, we ain't talking to the police, law enforcement. But we were saying, do it. Have the necessary conversations, go in for the meetings, because the warrant we all knew when we first arrived in Kentucky, which was May of 2020, and Breonna had been dead since March. of 2020. So for 2 months, when we first arrived, the biggest story that the local community there was telling us was that the warrant was filed, that it was a lie. Everything in the warrant was a lie. That the postmaster, because the basis of the warrant was that packages were being delivered to Breonna's house and that the postmaster said they looked suspicious. But he came forward and said, I never, ever, ever told anybody that there were suspicious packages being delivered to this woman's house. And so it was a lie from the beginning, and that's how they got the no-knock warrant. And, approached her home that evening. Now, there's a lot of people say conspiracies, but we don't think it's conspiracies about what they were really trying to do. There's development in the area where they're trying to get people out of their homes in that community. And this is not, we know they work, the police departments, they work sometimes, individual officers, I'm not talking about the official department, but they work in conjunction at times with development companies and others who are trying to clear out communities. So we know that. Then also, they looking for drug money. They thought that there was a possibility that there was money in the house somewhere, and they went there to rob Breonna and Kenny. That's what they went there for.
The cops?
Absolutely.
Hell yeah,
Wow.
the police.
Cops
They went
been
there.
through
I mean, I know, but I never heard that part.
Oh man, so I said the development piece because that's also a big deal that's happening across the country. But the money is more than likely the real reason why they went to that house, because they felt that someone they knew had been involved in illegal activity was in the house before, which was Breonna's friend. And so they made, in their mind, it may be money there, and they don't really care whose life they're destroying. They just go in there tearing up people's walls,
Drug dealers
trying
can't
to
call the
see.
police on
That's right.
Exactly. So so we think that those are some of the reasons, and there may be others. But the bottom line is,
It was illegal.
It was illegal. And Kenny, who we don't talk about enough, Breonna's boyfriend, he had every right to fire
That's
a
right.
shot from his legal weapon,
right.
because that's the law. You get to fire a warning shot. They claimed that because of the warning shot, it allowed them to fire up the entire apartment and to shoot through walls and shoot through windows without knowing who was on the other side.
Now, something that you said that the officer that was the whistleblower didn't do it because she felt bad, but did it because
She was
on
going
her
to jail,
ass.
right? So that's why I said the FBI never left, right? They were around investigating, talking to people, but they do that all the time. And then after 5 years, we saw that with Eric Garner. After 5 years, they come forward and they say, oh, we didn't find anything. But we always knew that there were several issues, and if we had time today, we would sit here and go through at least 5 to 6 things that should have called for Daniel Cameron to indict these officers from the beginning, or at least for him to present the charges so the grand jury could indict the officers. So since the FBI was there, they are obviously, they don't tell us anything, right? But they're doing something. They're talking to people. And this officer, she recently had a child, I think.
Yes. Yep. She recently had a child. She was under fire for there was officers throwing slushies at protesters, so they were being investigated for that. And so she was going to jail behind that as well. So
she had issues, and so she basically turned on them. And the big story is that they met, as Mysonne said, they got together to decide how they would work it out. They met in a garage and they sat down and figured out a plan. And a part of it was to smear Breonna Taylor's name. And so they went on a whole smear campaign, putting all types of things that was not true out there. And of course, our people, I saw you post something about the haters that spread lies. Some of our own people repeated those lies and went out and we do the legwork. We know how to help the oppressor. Got out there and started spreading a bunch of bullshit that wasn't true, about her. She was not a drug dealer. She was a good young lady. And we knew that from the time that we touched the ground, that she came from a beautiful family. And if all of us were held accountable for the friends that we have,
Oh, Lord.
we'd be dead. Every single one of us would be dead.
Oh, absolutely.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah,
Were
absolutely.
y'all shocked that Kelly Goodlett pled guilty?
I wasn't, because at some point when you weak, they know how to go at the weakest link, and that's what happens in the streets and everything. That's why I tell you, like, crime don't pay, because everybody is not built for that. So they get involved in some things, and then you put enough pressure on them, and then the walls start closing in. So when you look at this white lady coming from this community, and they talking about sending her to jail, and she like, well, listen, I'm gonna tell the truth.
I got a newborn.
I got to move on. I'm
Right.
gonna tell you really what
got a
happened.
newborn.
So that's what happened. She cracked under pressure. So I'm definitely not
She had
surprised.
a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even with that, wouldn't they still, like, they punish you for going against them? So isn't there still a chance you could go to jail?
I mean, she probably gonna get, but she's gonna get less than
she's
they are.
she's gonna get less than them.
She's definitely gonna get less than them, especially
Facing
for
5
being able.
years.
She's facing 5 years.
And the other 3 are all facing life sentences.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and still none of them. So I think I've been told, I might be right, that none of them is the person who actually shot her.
No, none of them
Right.
are.
So still, the
There's still
officer
work to
who
be done.
actually killed her has not been charged. And so there's work. Again, there's work to be done, but there is something happening
And what
here.
they're saying is pretty much what these officers did led to her being killed.
Right.
So they were the
warrant.
first line of what happened to her, because the warrant was never issued, and those officers would never been able to go in there and actually take her life. So they pretty much are responsible for her being murdered.
Right.
I was going to ask you mentioned the boyfriend as well, the brother, and I felt like for
Kenny.
a while, I felt like a while he was quiet, like they almost made him quiet. Why was that?
I had a conversation with Kenny, right? And this
That
is,
was so funny.
I had a conversation with Kenny about this, and he was like, at first he was nervous. You know, he shot at a police. They was trying to kill him. He
didn't shoot at a police
I mean, he shot.
officer.
He shot
a
and then
warning
Somebody
shot at the
intruded in his
ground.
house.
That's
He
right.
thought it was a home
Exactly.
invasion,
And-
I'm sure.
And they had him thinking that he was going to jail he was immediately locked up. He was walking around with an ankle bracelet. He was going through all of this scrutiny, all of these things. He watched his girlfriend get killed right in front. He was dealing with a lot. And I remember when he woke up one day and he said, look, I'm not being quiet no more. He said, Breonna need justice, and I'm going to go out there every time. I want to do every interview. I want to do everything. You know, it was a sense of understanding. Like when we go through that, you know, we go through the initial shock of something happening. And I think he really woke up one day and he was very adamant about it. He looked me dead in my face and said, man, I'm going on every interview. I'm going to tell the truth, and I don't care what happens because Breonna need justice.
He did, and because he called me and he said, you don't have to do this by yourself anymore. I'm ready. And I was like, well, Kenny, you know, I know it's a lot going on. You can take your time. And he was like, nope, I'm ready, and I'm tired of them, and it's just time. And
Because
ever
he's
since
being
then-
sued. He
Yeah.
was being sued by one of the officers. And then also he was done to something else. They kind of had him under like a gag order a
they
little
was
bit.
trying to like saying, well, you can't speak because we can come back and
Yeah,
charge
they
you.
I thought
dismissed
something
it
like
with
that.
no,
Yeah.
what do they call it? Dismissed it with
Dismissed
prejudice?
Without
dismissed
prejudice?
it without
Without
prejudice.
prejudice.
So that means that
So-
they could bring it back.
Yeah, so he was like held under that for so long, and it was just a number of things. So he couldn't say what he wanted to say, and then he just got tired of it. So,
Yeah.
especially this officer is suing him, tormenting him, making posts every day, tweeting about him every day, just kept going, and then finally he just was like, "That's enough."
Wow. As activists, though, it has to be kind of a fulfilling feeling, right? Just the fact that y'all are always out there, y'all on the front lines. People be like, what are y'all doing out there? You know, they say all types of things about y'all, but
Yeah.
to see this happen has to make y'all feel good, sort of, kind
Well,
of.
first of all, I think that as Black folks who are continuously fighting, whether you're an activist or not, if you're somebody who sent a donation, if you just tweeted a thing, we all deserve to have some joy and to celebrate when we win. Right? So that's absolutely. We all together, we were together when we learned of the news, or at least they told us right 5 seconds after they walked out of the door. And we cried together. We celebrated with our Breeway family, and just, you know, to make sure we lift the people there in Kentucky, because if it were not for those people on the ground who were living out in the street overnight for several months for Breonna, we couldn't have built the movement that we built. We did that because the local community was willing to stand out there, and you know, and in fact, let's make sure we lift one of the young men, Chris Wells, who was a soldier for the movement for Breonna Taylor, and he just was funeralized a few days ago, a young man. You know, a lot happened. That's the second person we lost as a part of the movement. And it's been more than that, actually.
Yeah, because there was Travis, there was Tyler, there was McAtee. So.
Yes. Yeah. So when you think about these movements, you think about, you know, Ferguson, people die, right? Like protesters give their lives to be a part of this stuff, living in the street, you know, losing jobs and income, family members. So much it has happened there in Kentucky. And so we have to make sure we uplift them. And so this moment is not, even though, of course, it's for Tamika and her family and Janiyah, Breonna's sister first, but it's also for all of us, right? It's for Black America. It's for anybody who's righteous and just and wants to see the system work. But there's so much work to be done from the point of an indictment to an actual conviction, and then moreover, changing the way that policing is done in America in general. And I think that's what makes you take this, you know, you're like, yeah, oh.
And you die. And I think for me, right, it's the constant, you know, fake narratives that what we do doesn't work, right? That we wasting our time, that it's a waste of time, and that you shouldn't be doing it. You're just marching. What are you marching for? You're not changing anything. And to understand that we've sacrificed so much. Like, we take hits from our own people. We get false accusations. We've been accused of anything you could possibly get, death threats. We have to sacrifice from our family. And we did it because we believed in the cause. And we slept in the streets. We slept in, you know, we with the people. We marched every day. We seen people cry. It's people who lived inside of a square every day because they wanted to see justice for Breonna Taylor. And they was constantly shut down. We had, you know, Daniel Cameron sit there and make Tamika Palmer drive an hour to him to tell him that they wasn't getting no justice. Hearing her cry on the phone as we sat there, and we went through those things. The 1 year anniversary of her being murdered, and we sat in her house as we cried together and held each other's hands. So when we go through these things, we had to go to the DOJ, and we brought petitions, and we've it's heavy. Like, this is our family now. This is just not somebody. This is our family. Tamika Palmer is our family, literally. Like, it's not like family. This is our family. So when we hear something like this, and we see that the work that all of us worldwide, just somebody putting up Breonna Taylor, shout out to Cardi B, shout out to Angela
Yee. Everybody
who said, you know what happened,
so many
Breonna
people,
Taylor.
Alicia Keys.
So many people that we can't even name, to know that came from people really wanting justice, and to see some level of justice, so you have to celebrate that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You have to.
I was going to ask, you know, you talked about the feds coming in and they still doing the work. Have the feds ever talked to you guys personally? But there's going to be a lot of times where people feel comfortable talking to you. You know, talking to somebody that looks like them. Would rather give you information, but that person that gives you information might have a warrant for something else and be like, I ain't talking to them. Has that ever been a conversation at all?
No, but
I've never talked to them.
No, you know, this
I'm just letting
dude
you know,
right here
I don't
is,
talk to the feds.
you know, like, yo, don't even get me started. Like, Mike,
just
they
being
want you to
honest.
come down there and meet me. He'd be like, nah, somebody else got to do that. I'm good.
not my thing.
But no, they didn't talk to us because we weren't there, right? We didn't live in Kentucky. We weren't there when it happened. They talked to people in the area, and particularly people who lived in the building. Because I don't know if you all remember, they had a guy who they made him lie at first to say that he heard the police saying police.
Yeah.
And then he said, wait a minute, this is not true. I didn't hear anything. They never announced themselves. What we did was continue to validate that, listen, guys, you have to talk to the feds, because if they don't have a real case, it's no way that they'll ever be able to file charges. And that would be their excuse, because they always looking for an excuse to do nothing, right? Like, why? And by the way, they know that at the point that they filed these charges, they make Daniel Cameron, they expose what he didn't do, whether they say it or not. You know, so we were trying to validate that, hey, we've got to use the system, at least try everything necessary. You know, and shout out to Attorney Ben Crump, who was constantly saying, hey, guys, everybody needs to make sure that they are giving them the information that they're looking for, and not necessarily see them as our enemy. But I think it's also important to talk about the entire journey, right? Because, yes, we went there, we protest, we lived in Kentucky for 4 months. We said we were going there for 30 days. You remember, 30 days. And we ended up staying for 4 months, because when we got there, we found out that, yes, Breonna Taylor, but also poverty, also hunger, also so much. We fed
Mental
4,000 people while we were there. The mental health
Trauma.
issue we still haven't been able to tackle because we need it. We need it too, right? Like, no, really,
That's
people
a
are
lot.
traumatized in Kentucky and everywhere, all of us, from what we experience, being under surveillance, having helicopters over our
Drones
homes,
over our
drones following us. Like, people saw it. I remember Mysonne was doing an interview with Fat Joe one day, walking through the streets. Like, he called him like, let's talk right now. The police started chasing us in the street, and the whole interview, he's running at night from the cops, trying to be like, yeah, and this is where we are. Like, it was happening in real
Me
time.
and Envy had an interview like that when we was in what was it? It was for George Floyd.
George Floyd.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they had just tear gas. He called me when they just tear gassed us.
That y'all took off that day, and I was here by myself, and I was interviewing him, and they hit him with he's wiping his eyes during the interview, and he pouring water. I'm like, yo, call me back. He's like, nah, we gonna do this. Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah, like, so this all of this happened, and while we were in Kentucky, we learned that we had to do so much more to be a part of the community, and it was still a lot of struggles. Then we left Kentucky and we didn't go home. We went to Georgia to ensure that the two Democratic candidates were elected, right? Which was Ossoff and Warnock, right? Because that was the whole thing, that there's no way that we could put a Democrat in the presidency and then not secure these two Senate seats, because in order for us to make sure that everything functioned, you had to win these two seats to give us the majority, right? That was the well, I'm just saying that's what they said, right? That's what they said. We can all of us can argue to hell with the Democrats. Biden ain't no good. This one ain't that. Fine, but we're talking about serious strategy, not just people talking. We can win the Senate so we can pass some legislation, right? That was what we went to do. So we lived there for another month. Just to be clear, without a Biden presidency, you would not have indictments for Breonna Taylor. Now, I have issues with a 76-year-old. I don't want another 76-year-old white man to run this country ever again in life. I had issues with Biden, and in fact, he was not my choice to start with. When there was 9 million people running for the Democratic nomination, it was 9 million people.
At least.
I was supporting Elizabeth Warren, and then we said, okay, if Elizabeth, I could also take Bernie. I had issues with Bernie too, but I was with either one of them. People did not do what was necessary to get those two people in position. Or anybody else. It was a bunch of people. Yeah. You could have chose whoever. Castro was running. We liked him too. It was a bunch of people. We didn't do it. So you ended up with the situation that we were in, and we decided, and that's okay, that as Mysonne and we talk about all the time, we wanted to have the best opponent possible that we could fight, because there was nobody you could call in the Trump presidency. I just want to make that clear. I had no phone call I could make to anybody to say, yo, we mad at you. There's nobody to complain to. They did not give two hot dams. So we at least wanted to get somebody that there were people there that we can call. And guess who we can call? Kristen Clark, who is the head of the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. We call her and tell her we mad about everything. The poor lady, she's tired of hearing from me. I write letters. I send boats, planes, trains. We took petitions to her office. We got her under fire that we want to see something done. And guess what? You got George Floyd. You have, obviously Breonna Taylor. And there's a number of other things. Correction officers that they have indicted. There are things coming out of the Department of Justice. No, it's not all fixed, and there's many issues. But I'm just saying, a lot of people get it in their mind that we're just protesters. No, we're actually strategists, and we're dealing with a system we can't fix just us on our own, but working within it, you have to know how to maneuver.
So what's the strategy to make sure that they actually get convicted?
We got to go move back to Kentucky.
And what we got to do also is, I think right now my main focus is, and I know a lot of people feel the same way, is Daniel Cameron cannot be the governor of Kentucky.
Yeah, he's running for governor.
There's no way possible that somebody like that, who is complicit, who has pretty much done criminal to undermine what happened to Breonna Taylor, to hide these officers, to hide charges that could have been brought forward. We had a whole jury pool who said that they were never even given
Not the whole jury.
I mean, you had people in the jury, several people in the jury,
'cause
who
they
said that
love
they
to
were
say-
not given the opportunity to charge anybody for Breonna Taylor, and they were looking for that. So we know that he did things that were illegal. So for him to become the governor of Kentucky would be the most gross miscarriage of justice ever. So I want to focus on that right now, and then what we need to do is make sure that we advocate. I think it looks pretty much clear since they have the whistleblower, they have the evidence that unless somebody completely drops the ball, and the feds don't just come get you unless they got you. You know what I'm saying? Unless somebody completely drops the ball, that these officers will be doing jail time. I think they should be doing life because they should be held accountable for what happened to Breonna Taylor. So we got to continue to do the work. We got to go back to Kentucky. We got to continue to knock on Kristen Clark's door and say, hey, what's going on? We need to be at the trial. We need to be outside. We need to make sure that the world is talking about it, that they're not able to just sweep it under the rug like what happened, in the Ahmaud Arbery's case. You see, every day when they was trying to say, hey, we don't want to go to this jail. Nah. Y'all need to go to the jail where you're going to do the most time. We're not letting you get over, because what happens is as soon as it leaves the media, then they try to get these little deals and these little trick things. So we got to make sure that everything is publicized.
I saw one of the officers, what's his name, Joshua James, he requested a change of trial venue.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of doing something like that?
Because he's an idiot.
Well,
He's an idiot.
no, what they want to do, the officers always want to, they don't want to be tried with their own peers or people who live in the community, people who actually know the information. They want to always try to move places where they feel like they could get a better shot. And that's been something, Amadou Diallo, like cases forever. It's been a strategy, but I don't think that that's going to happen in this situation. They need to stay right there in Kentucky and face the music of the people who've had to listen to the cries of this family for the last 2.5 years.
And what's something that citizens of Kentucky can do to be like proactive about keeping Daniel Cameron from becoming governor?
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, go ahead.
No. I think what we have to do is first we got to find out who are we going to support, right? We got to make sure that we find somebody to support to run against him. And then at the same time, we got to point out everything that he did to show why he's not even competent to be the governor. I think as Until Freedom and organizations like us, it's our job to create that mechanism to show, because we understand all the dynamics of what he's done. So, we have to put that together, and it's going to be a long process, but I think if we do it right, along with the voice of Miss Taylor, of what she's been through, just alone with Daniel Cameron, I
Miss
can't.
Palmer.
I mean, why she said? I'm so sorry. Now that was.
She looked at
She looked at me. She said. Yeah, she did like that. You see that spin? She said. I mean, Miss Palmer, I'm sorry. Alone with her story alone, what he did to her alone is just is disgusting, and he doesn't even have the empathy or the moral compass to run Kentucky. So
Yeah, I say I want him locked up, but Ben Trump told me that that's like
it's
too
far-fetched.
much.
But
But no, he didn't say it was too much. He just said
They ain't gonna do it.
If you look at the situation, more than likely they won't arrest him. So I was like, okay, so then maybe but I'm still saying he needs to be arrested. Gotcha. But, I also, and I think Mysonne touched on it, it's really important that there are a lot of people in Kentucky that really just don't know. Like sometimes we think because we know and we're upset that everybody knows. There are a lot of people who don't. They have no idea what's going on. They don't know what he did, because of course it was on the news for about a night, and then that's, they move on to the next thing. So we have to do what we did to get this justice, knock on doors. Every single door. That's what we did in Kentucky. When we were having marches and protests, we didn't depend on the people just to show up. We went out every single Thursday and we canvassed communities, knocked on doors, dropped off boxes of food. Like, it was very, very intentional. We did a bunch of training.
How to do rallies, how to do marches, the proper way to do everything. So
yep. Linda Sarsour and Reverend Stephen Greene, they were our two trainers. And every single week we had sessions where we brought people together, because, the provocateurs always come out to the rallies. And in Kentucky, they got big guns, baby. They be outside with you walking, in the same march. You got people who are either acting like they're with you, or people who are actively against you with big weapons, and people need to know, what do I do? Because if you just show up and you've never been a protester, but the Breonna Taylor situation brought you to the street, who's going to train you and tell you what to do in case there's a situation?
And what to look out for, how not to engage with certain people, because that's what they do. They provoke you and they want you to engage. So if you're not skilled in that, they easily can infiltrate. Right?
Well, what did it feel like waiting on the verdict for the officers? Because you said they came out and told y'all 5 seconds before. Like, what did that feel like, just waiting on the verdict?
No,
it wasn't a verdict, just letting us know that they were going to be charged.
Yeah, I don't know. What's the technical term for that? I don't know.
Indictment.
Waiting for the indictments to be handed down.
What they were actually being charged with, and what each charge could face. For me, it was a long time coming. It was, you don't know what to think. I got to the point where I didn't know if that day was ever going to come. And so I kind of just was existing at that point, and I didn't believe that anything else good was going to come from it. But to get to that moment and to hear it, and just, you don't know if you want to cry, be happy. You just are consumed with this thing. But to get there, it took 874 days, and it was worth it.
Did you have a feeling in your mind, like, if they don't do the right thing, I'm just gonna wild out? I can't take it no more.
I was there. Yeah. It was like, the week before, I really thought like I was losing my mind, and that was it, and I wasn't gonna let these people continue to act as if they did nothing to my child. And so I literally was at the end, like, something's gonna happen here.
No, it's true, because the week before, like maybe 5 days before, I called Mysonne and said, somebody's got to do something for Tamika Palmer, because I could tell she was spiraling. I could just tell in the Facebook post, and then when we were speaking and not speaking, like, you know, she wasn't really wanting to communicate, and I was like, something has to happen, because I'm telling you, she's going to lose her mind. And I'm so, thank God this has actually been, as she said, a new start. Like, now we've got something else to fight for, because it felt like there would be nothing. And when you asked what was the wait, Linda and I were on the phone all night, because they told us we had 24 hours to make it to Kentucky. Needed to drop everything and get there. So we did. We thought of every low-level possibility, because you have no expectations of, like, the federal or any part of this government.
And they never told us what it was for.
Yeah,
they
never
just like,
said
we just need you to get here in the morning.
You have to be there by a certain time. So we were thinking, they're going to tell us that they're investigating. They're going to tell us that, they figured out, maybe one thing or one person. Like, we just had all the low-level expectations possible, trying to manage the anxiety. But it seemed like that morning we were saying they would not call us all the way to Kentucky to tell us nothing. Although Daniel Cameron did that to Tamika. He did that to Tamika. Her attorneys, Attorney Lanita Baker and Attorney Sam Aguiar, they told Daniel Cameron, please do not have her drive all the way to the state capitol, which is an hour away from her home, to tell her that nothing is going to happen for Breonna. And he still did it and had her go there to learn that they were indicting an officer for shooting the walls of a neighbor, but not for Breonna. And she, talks about that long drive home, which I think infuriated us so much after that, and in the process of all of this, when you talk about people and the negative things that folks say about us, they gave us felonies. My son still even though the felony has been expunged, still he deals with like these little airport issues and other things, because obviously having a felony and then another one popping up on your record, there are little issues that even though it's gone, it's never gone. It's never gone. So, we went through a lot, not just in this situation, but also we were supporting Ahmaud Arbery's family at the same time, George Floyd's family at the same time, Dante Wright's family, and the cases go on and on.
That's what hurt it, right? Because, as a black man in this space, right, and I was watching justice happen for black men. I watched it happen for Ahmaud Arbery. I watched it happen for George Floyd. And I watched her comfort all of those families, because they became like a unit. And I watched her happy for them. But I knew that it was hurting her that the only person who had received any level of justice was her daughter.
Absolutely.
You know, and that was like, as a black man, knowing that you can't protect a black woman, that hurts. It hurts knowing that it's nothing that we could do, and these people literally took this woman's life, and it's nothing gonna happen, and y'all gonna act like it just didn't happen, and it's just like, when we actually heard that, I felt a lot. There was a load lifted from me. Like, okay, now I got more energy to fight. Because sometimes you need fuel. Because this fight is long. We know it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. But it gets draining. So that I needed that fuel to continue with this fight. And I'm glad seeing her just take a deep breath, not be in pain, but have some level of like, okay, something has happened. Just was good for me.
Yeah, and Kenny's mother too.
Yeah.
Right? Kenny's mother too. You know, it hurt because I think she was dealing with like, my child lived and hers didn't.
Right.
And then he still was dying inside, and to have that conversation with him, I asked her the night that we were all together, you know, how do you feel? And she was just like, it's just like you said, it's something lifted off of me that at least we're getting somewhere, because there literally was nothing. But speaking of needing fuel and supporting families, now we have another Breonna, which is Breonna Greer, right? Which is the young lady in Georgia who had a mental health crisis. She had a schizophrenic attack. Her parents, who are elderly people, they called the police before 6 or 7 times, and the cops would come and help them. But this time they came. They were obviously aggressive. There's video out there that shows them aggressive with her, dragging her, and they put her in the car. They did not secure the seatbelt, left the door open, drove her off. She fell out the car, hit her head, and died.
Damn.
So now we just sat in her funeral together, Tamika and I, sitting there supporting the new Breonna.
It's too
These
much.
things
Too much,
come
man.
up every single day. Every single day, police kill people in situations that are unjustified. And Breonna Greer is now the new situation that we're trying to help to, get justice for her family. And in fact, people who are listening, please tap in, because Black women, it is so hard to get people to stand up for Black women. What we had to do to maintain a movement for 2 months, there were, other than some of the local community members, no one was saying anything about Breonna Taylor. For 2 months, she was dead. There was no news, nothing around her death. Now, Breonna Greer, yes, you have Attorney Crump working on it, so of course that brings attention. But even that, when's the last time you saw a post or heard anything about Breonna Greer? It's been weeks. If we don't, we have to actually actively and intentionally find creative ways to keep people focused, because we love to find excuses. The excuse was, well, Breonna Taylor was with a drug dealer, which we now know was 100% not true. The excuse with Breonna Greer is her parents shouldn't have called the police. First of all, this country does nothing to deal with mental health issues, especially at the intersection of law enforcement when they are being called. We've been talking about when we say defund the police, which folks are so, oh my God, that's the term, the holy grail. Why would you say that? We're not talking about eliminating police at all, completely. That's a dream that one day that will happen. But what we're talking about is taking funding from already, they have too much money. They have more money than they need. And we're talking about giving them more money, and there's not enough resources going to deal with things like a Breonna Greer situation, where law enforcement should be arriving with someone who knows.
Or not arriving at all, just sending out the mental health professionals to go deal with those, because it's not a violent situation. So if you understand this is a mental health person, and I'm not skilled to deal with someone who has those issues, let me send out the people who are skilled to deal with them. So let's fund that. That arena of of crime or of the police organization. Let's have a unit for that.
A unit for that. And the reason why I'm only, and I'm not so much pushing back, because I agree, like, we are abolitionists at heart. We want to see there's no police in our communities, but that's not where we are today. The mental health professionals need protection too, right? So when they are arriving in a situation, they might feel like they need somebody to be there to ensure that they don't get harmed or whatever, that the call that they're going into is a real call and all of that. Fine. I'm saying that the front line should be somebody who has the skill set to help a Breonna Greer so that you don't even have a need, because they didn't want their daughter to leave the house and go to jail. That was not what they were calling for. But she was in crisis and they needed a way to get her calmed down and back to reality, right? So because she's got two baby girls, 3-year-old twins. She's got to be back to reality in order to deal with these kids and to be a part of her family. But that's not what they sent. They sent officers who many of them don't care. So let's put that out front. And then even if they do care, they are not skilled to deal with these issues in the ways in which they should. So funding has to be balanced.
Yeah.
It has to be balanced. It's not balanced in this moment. So that's number one. But you know what our excuse was for that? Well, why would they call the cops? Well, what do? You're an elderly person and you've got a child who has schizophrenia. Who do you call? Because there's no
Let's give 'em somebody
national
else to be able to
number.
call. Yeah.
Who do you call?
They have 988 now, but
Yeah.
that's more so for suicide.
Exactly.
And instead of like mental health crisis.
And I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Like,
That just
recently,
happened though.
that was
It just happened like
very
last
recent, though.
last 60
yeah,
days.
so that's what I'm saying. Like, it should be like we need to have all of the numbers to the people that we can call that's an alternative to police.
Absolutely.
Because the reality of the situation is police a lot of them don't de-escalate. And they're not even trained or skilled in de-escalation. I just put a thing on my post today where an officer pretty much punched the lady in the face.
Oh, I saw that.
A young
man.
girl.
A young girl, 19 years old, because she walked in. I guess it was somebody, her family. She walks in, he's talking to her, and the officer pushed her. She pushed him back, and he punched.
And it was a black man.
Black man, and he punched. And you look at her head, the way her head hit
that
the ground.
concrete.
It's
Yeah,
like,
man.
I don't even understand the mentality that it takes. Like, it's within 10 seconds. And we constantly see that they don't have the skill set to deal with 15 seconds of any level of conflict. If 15 seconds push you to where you got to harm and physically impose your will on somebody, then you're not skilled enough to be at this job. In my opinion, I need officers that come into my community with levels of empathy, understanding that, okay, I'm arresting somebody. So there's going to be a little bit of pushback. I'm giving you a ticket. You're going to be a little bit of angry. So I understand that. I understand that you're going to be like, what are you giving me this ticket for? What are you doing this? I have to have the skill set because I'm being paid. This officer got paid $118,000 last year as an officer. He's getting paid money to do this job, to say, I understand I'm dealing with people going to have a little bit of anger. So let me be the professional.
That's right.
And if
That's
you
right.
can't do that, then you shouldn't be an officer.
Yeah, and that was our position on the Angel Geist situation, right? Because everybody was like, nah, after we saw the second video, in Atlanta, the young lady who the officer was arresting in the park with her, or she was on a date and she was in the park, and then it got into a whole thing and they said she resisted arrest, and she did. No one is going to argue that point. But what we were trying to say is if you go back to the very beginning of the video, I'm not talking about the piece that the police department put out that helps them show her resisting. I'm talking about the first encounter. Officer walks up and tells these two people, hey, you might not be from here, you got Ohio plates, but you can't be in the park after a certain time. They say, okay, cool, gotcha. At that point, for me, it's over. But people said, well, there's been killings in the park, there's been shootings, so, he can't just let them go. Fine. So now he asks for their identification. At the point that you ask for somebody's ID, they mad. They're going to have an attitude. And then he gets their ID. They didn't give him an issue. They gave him the ID. He goes away, and now he comes back. He wants to give them a ticket. He wants them to sign the ticket. It's too much interaction between police and community for something as simple as standing in the middle of the park when you can look at these two people and tell they're not the criminals that y'all supposed to be looking
Community
for.
policing is
Meanwhile,
lost.
the criminals are running wild, doing all kinds of things, but you over here harassing two people. And yes, she had an attitude. Absolutely. But we are not on the same level with the police. They are paid. They get a check. They go to training. They're supposed to be dealing with de-escalation, dealing with people who are upset. That is their job. The civilian does not have the training. The civilian is pissed off because I get a ticket. That means I got to pay money to somebody. I got to go to court somewhere and try to fight. I'm dealing with bullshit. That's how I feel. And unfortunately, for some reason, we seem to see one another on the same level. But if I go, and we had this example, if I go to the doctor and I know that I got a bruise and I need help, if I got to fix it myself, what we paying you for?
That's real.
You're the professional.
Yes,
You know, so that was the whole position that we had on that particular issue. And of course, yeah, accountability, everybody has to be accountable. But the way that officers are operating, and you said something that is so true, black officers, something's wrong. Either they're going through some type of mental issue because on the job it's too much stress. I don't know what it is, but lately we've been noticing that black officers are really just on one.
It don't make any sense. Like, that's the one you should at least be. He's the one that should de-escalate that situation
Right.
the most.
And I posted another video where it was a black kid in the community. Officer walked up, a white guard tried to grab him up. Black officer got in the middle and was like, wait, calm down. Relax. The dude was like, yeah, thank you. I'm going with you. Like, why is he grabbing me like that? He was able to, and it was how you police the community. And it was a bunch of wild dudes. And soon as he jumped in, like, come on, I got him. Let me walk. The dude was like, all right, I'm going with you, man. Why he trying to hit me like that? He was able to do it. It works when you do that. People just want to be treated like human beings. Even if they get arrested or you whatever it is, treat me like I'm a man. Like, you can't just take my manhood away from me and my humanity away from me because you're an officer. It's not going to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like if civilians can, restrain themselves from being violent towards officers, when they see the officers do the things that they do to us, police officers with the training should be able to restrain themselves from being violent.
Man.
But they do it with white folks.
That's what I'm saying.
They do it with crazy white people screaming, grabbing their gun, driving, damn near running over them.
Things on them, yeah.
They do it. We see it. My son started posting, because when mice get started on something, I be having to call Charlamagne like, yo, can you text your brother and tell him to please, please, because he's gone. But he was posting, white lady telling the officer, I hope you die.
Yeah, she said, I see why they trying to kill you. I see why they shoot at y'all. He said, thank you, ma'am. Have a good day.
Exactly.
Gave her a ticket and wrote. And because he understood, you mad. I'm giving you a ticket. You trying to figure out why you pulling me over. He understands. It's an old lady. I'm not getting back forth with you. I already gave you the ticket. My job is done. Get home safe. How you feel about me and you angry really doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
My ego is not that big that I got to go back and show you that I'm empowered. I already gave you the ticket. You still got to deal with that ticket. You understand what I'm saying? That's the mindset I think that officers have to have when they dealing with civilians.
Yeah, but to put in the Atlanta situation, you dealing with quotas. See, it's all about capitalism, and that's the thing that people have to understand. This officer is in the park, and he's got to be able to prove that he did something. So these two people who standing here hugged up, doing a little kissy face in the park, those two people now become a part of him being able to keep his job and show a performance review, which is a quota, and then the quota leads to people having to pay money. So capitalism is literally killing black people. That's literally what's happening. And the idea that now I have to sign a ticket. If people can't see how crazy it is, that you give me a ticket, I already got, and now you're going to tell me to get a pen and sign something right here. And I don't want to sign, you sign stuff you haven't really read and don't. Have you ever been asked to sign a ticket?
Never.
Me neither.
That's
never happened to me either.
There you go.
Oh, damn. Well.
What's next?
What's
We
next?
appreciate you guys for joining us. What's
Always.
next?
We need justice. We need the officers completely in jail. We need them charged. I mean, they already charged. We need them prosecuted, and we need them in prison.
Yeah.
Serving their sentences. We need Daniel Cameron not to become the governor. And we need to try to restore some level of something in our community.
We need support for grassroots organizations.
That too.
And
We
how
don't.
can people support? Yeah, I want you to get the website so people can do financially as well.
Yes, you can go to untilfreedom.com, untilfreedom.com, and support us, support our organization and the work that we're doing. And there are others, like some folks are like.
What is your organization?
Breonna Taylor Foundation.
Breonna Taylor Foundation.
Breonna Taylor Foundation. Is it .org?
.org.
Yes. And a lot of people like, well, we don't like Until Freedom. No problem. Don't gotta like Until Freedom. There are many organizations out here doing work, and they need support. Local groups. Whenever there's heightened moments like 2020, you see people raising a lot of money. They're able to bring in resources For us, during the 2020 period, we raised at Until Freedom $3 million. People think that because they heard this $100 million that Black Lives Matter received, that somehow that went to us. We did not receive $100 million, nowhere near it. We received $3 million, and our campaign, and this is not, you can look at our filings, you can ask Tamika Palmer, who's sitting right here, and even people who don't like us in Kentucky have to admit, we spend $1.5 million on the campaign to get justice for Breonna Taylor. Wow. $1.5 million of our money was spent doing that work, we re-granted money that came to us to local organizations there, giving people $20,000, $25,000. Again, we fed people, feeding the community, hosting activities. We had a whole conference for Breonna, to bring awareness and bring people in, flying people in and out, living there. It cost us $1.5 million. So help us, support us, because now we have Breonna Greer, and there are a list of other situations. I just got off the phone last night with a mother whose son is in prison, and the story is so crazy. I can't talk about it today, but the story is so crazy, and the work that it takes to help people is not free. So and then people tag me all day. Where they at? Where's Tamika Mallory? Where's Until Freedom? Where's Mysonne? Where's this
and
one?
And Boycott Black Murder is my campaign that I'm doing, just the anti-violence in the community, just trying to redirect the culture.
And I want you to come back up here next week or a couple of weeks or whenever you feel.
I'm going to come up here with my boy A.T. Mitchell. I
want to talk to you about a lot of stuff that's going on in hip-hop and
absolutely
people talking about their lyrics and then telling on themselves and then getting mad when the DA uses
Sounds like
matter of fact, come Tuesday, Mike. What we got Tuesday?
Tuesday works.
Tuesday. Come Tuesday. That's a whole other discussion.
He might be in Kentucky. You guys, where you gonna be?
I don't know. Yeah, you got to look at your.
Well, next time you over, because I seen you post yesterday, and we want to have that conversation. I would love to open up the lines and talk to some of these young brothers that think it's okay.
I can't wait.
A crime,
that's a conversation.
Rap about it, and then be mad when it's used against them.
I can't wait.
All right.
They say that's a confession.
It is.
Duh.
What?
Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Tamika Mallory, of course, Mysonne.
Appreciate
it's
you.
the Breakfast Club. Good morning.
Yes, sir.